For our church anniversary message, I sought the Lord and prayed, and I don't know where this is going to go. But I want to entitle my message this morning for a few moments, Belonging to a Messy Church. Belonging to a Messy Church. Before you judge me on this title, just wait until I finish my message. I've got a lot to say this morning, and I hope I can say it in 35 minutes. Proverbs, the 14th chapter and the 4th verse. I'm not the one that came up with this. King Solomon did. That's where I got my message. Proverbs 14:4, where no oxen are, the crib is clean. But much increase is by the strength of the ox. The Passion Translation says it this way. I like the way they said it. The only clean stable is an empty stable. So if you want the work of an ox and to enjoy an abundant harvest, you'll have a mess or two to clean up. So in other words, if you want a clean barn, get rid of the oxen. A barn with oxen is messy. It stinks. And you have manure all over the place. I'd like for a few moments to compare the barn of Proverbs, the 14th chapter, the 4th verse, to the church building and the ox to the people. According to King Solomon, a messy barn is a good barn. Now, I know it's a human nature to want the church to be a place of peace and tranquility and a place of beauty. We want the services to be smooth and absolutely perfect. We want the facilities to be attractive. I understand that and spotless. We want people to talk in quiet voices and always get along. But that's not the way it is in a lively, active, growing congregation. You see, a lively church has lots of noisy children and young people. A dead church is fairly quiet. A lively church often changes the way things are done. You saw that this morning. A dead church doesn't. A lively church asks people to open up and risk involvement. A dead church plays it safe and never takes any risk. A lively church believes in God's future and let's go with faith. A dead church believes in the past and holds on. A lively church is filled with committed givers. A dead church is filled with tippers. A lively church dares to dream great dreams for God's kingdom. A dead church has nightmares. The only way, my dear friend, we can have a neat, spick and span church is to have an empty church. It's not God's desire for us to have an empty church, especially an empty dead church. God is in the people business. And if God is in the people business, then you and I are to be in the people business. In my years of pastoring, I've learned a few things about people. People can be frustrating, loud, aggravating, frustrating, mean, unnerving, frustrating, unpredictable, frustrating. Did I mention frustrating? And so many pastors in this society, in this time, are wanting God to send them people that already knows church cliches, and they know how to tithe, and they dress good, and they smell good, and they never have problems and never give the pastor any problems. A lot of pastors thrive on the fish from other aquariums. They almost rejoice when there is a split in the neighboring church, hoping to get some of their fish. Matthew, the 4th chapter, and the 19th verse, Jesus said, I will make you fishers of men. Then he goes into saying in the 13th chapter, in the 47th verse, the kingdom of heaven is like a net that was cast into the sea and caught what? What? It wasn't certain kinds. It says, and they caught all kinds of fish. That means all kinds of people. The church is made up of all kinds of people. That's why it makes it messy. There's the fish family, cat and blowfish. Mr. Catfish is always sticking it to you, and Miss Blowfish is always blowing up about something. There's the back family. They hug you in the front while stabbing you in the back. Then there's Mr. and Mrs. Behind. That's the family that sits on their behind while you're working. You can tell I've pastored. Then there's Elder Critique. He's the one that brings 3 Bibles, 2 dictionaries, and a large notepad. He sits on the front row critiquing everything the pastor says. And how can I forget about Sister Ambien? She'll start sleeping as soon as you start preaching. Then there's the Love family. They just love to misquote everything you say. Then there's Brother and Sister Stingy. They'll ask the pastor to go out and eat after church, but they expect him to pay for it. I've had that happen. You see, there's a lot of different kind of fish out there to be caught in our community. There's a lot of hurting people. We just need to throw out the net. Did you know right here in our community in New Iberia is 28,844 people? Think of all of the fish. Iberia Parish alone has 67,859 people. In a 25-mile radius from this church, the Father's house, 25 miles radius. I drive 21 miles every Sunday. A 25-mile radius. There is 394,562 people that needs the Lord. In a radius of 50 miles, there are 795,846 people. Our number one goal, our number one mission is to catch fish. It's not to be a supper club. It's not to be a social place. Our number one goal for the Father's house, and I feel like I know our pastor's heart, our number one goal for the Father's house is to catch fish. And not only a certain kind of fish, to catch all kinds of fish. To catch some good fish and to catch some bad fish also. We should have our arms wide open to the prostitute, the alcoholic, the drug user, the homeless, the lesbian, the wife beater, the whoremonger, and the list could go on and on and on. Shame on the church for neglecting the tattooed, body-piercing, colored hair creatures of God. These are people, there are people out there that needs to be loved, but yet Christians are sitting in their seats picking who they want to love. Hey, AI didn't give me this, all right? It's a shame to say, but we cater to people that dress well and smell good. James 2, 1 through 4 pretty well describes a lot of churches. In the Good News translation, you must never treat people in different ways according to their outward appearance. Verse 2, suppose a rich man wearing a gold ring and fine clothes comes to your meeting, and a poor man in ragged clothes also comes. If you show more respect to the well-dressed man and say to him, have this best seat here, but say to the poor man, stand over there or sit here at the floor by my feet, then you are guilty of creating distinctions among yourselves and of making judgments based on evil motives. I remember years ago, I had many years ago, I had a hallway meeting. Just somebody introduced me to a guy, and that was it. And after that, I had a pastor friend call me and said, man, I want you to use this guy. I recommend him. He's great, and on and on and on and on. And he called me several times. So I finally decided I'll get this guy to come preach for me. I knew that he probably didn't even remember what I looked like, but I just wanted to help them out and bless them. And they've never met my wife, and I know he wouldn't remember, like I said, what I looked at. So we went to the airport to pick him up, and I wore an old sweaty hat sideways, and I had a flannel shirt, and the pockets was tore, and I had some holes in my jeans. Of course, that's okay nowadays, but I had, in them days it wasn't. I had holes in my jeans, and I had my old tennis shoes, and I just looked like I don't know, somebody homeless or something. And so when we went to the airport, I sat down and I told Sister Wells, I said, I'm going to do this when the couple comes down. That was down the stairways when they've just landed and come down the stairway. When I see them, I said, I'm going to do this. I said, and that means that's the couple. Go introduce yourself to them and tell them I couldn't be there. I had to go visit the hospital. She lied. I hope you repented of that lie. And so the couple comes down the stairs, and I see him, and Sister Wells goes there, introduces herself to the couple, and, we're glad you're here, and Pastor, was not here, and all that stuff. And so Sister Wells looked at me when I was sitting down there, and she says, Albert. I hope nobody's name is Albert here. She said, Albert. And I looked at her and said, yes, ma'am, Sister Wells. And she says, Albert, she says, this is the preachers that's preaching for us this weekend. She said, go get their luggage. The evangelist, the pastor, the man that is supposed to really love people didn't offer to help me with the luggage. So I did all the luggage by myself, and I put it in the automobile, and he didn't offer it. He didn't even speak to me. So I sat in the back seat, and his wife and my wife sat in the front seat, and Sister Wells drove. And so the only words that was spoken in that back seat was, I looked at him and I said, my preacher said, you're preaching this weekend. And he just said, yeah. He didn't ask me about my family. He didn't ask me if I was married. He didn't ask me if I had any children. He didn't ask me how long I went to harvest time. He didn't ask me a stinking thing. Didn't even look at me. But yet he had conversations with Sister Wells because she was all made up and had lipstick on and jewelry and nice clothes. And he had a conversation with his wife. But not a word was said to me because I didn't look like him. I was a fish out of water. And we stopped at the Piccadilly restaurant, and those three got out, and I stayed in the car. And I had Bubba teeth on, too. Yeah, I had my Bubba teeth. I got a good set of Bubba teeth. None of these cheap ones, a good set. And they got out of the car, and Sister Wells hollered, Albert, come eat with us. And I said, oh, no, ma'am, Sister Wells. I said, no, I don't want to eat. He could have said, yes, Albert, why don't you come eat with us? No, not a word was ever said because I was a different kind of fish. I hope I'm speaking to somebody today. I'm trying to get this where as God downloaded it to me. And so she finally came to the car and she opened the door. She said, Albert, come on. So I got out of the car and she says, Albert, I'm just in front of them. She said, Albert, I'm just asking you to do one thing. I said, yes, ma'am, Mrs. Sister Wells, what would it be? She said, Albert, just take your hat off when we get into the restaurant. And I said, would you like me to take my teeth out too? And I took them Bubba teeth out. And the guy literally turned red when he realized that the guy that he didn't speak to was the man that was going to write his check that week. You see, if we're not Christians, we want our barn to be full, but we want just the people just like us, that smells like us and looks like us and has the education that we have. But Solomon said when the barn gets full, the barn's going to be messy. We should never be a church that's willing to judge others. You see, the church is a spiritual hospital for hurting people. Let's compare the church to a hospital. In the secular hospital, you have an administrator. There's only one. In the spiritual hospital, it's the pastor. Only one. Would you say that with me? Only one. Anything with two heads is a freak. Then you have the professionals, which are many, and the leaders in the spiritual hospital. And then you have the workers in the secular hospital, and then the helps in the spiritual hospital. Then you have the patients, which is many. Then in the spiritual hospital, you have the souls. I want to just real quickly go through these four things. Number one, in a secular hospital, you have an administrator. This is the chief. He sets down guidelines, initiates policies, selects personnel, has an overall vision for the hospital, and he carries a 25-hour, 8-day-a-week concerned over the hospital. There's only one administrator. In the spiritual hospital, this would be considered the pastor. The pastor is the one that carries the overall vision of the church. It's okay in your small group. It's okay to have a vision, but it must come under the umbrella of the pastor's vision. After pastoring for 39 years, I can honestly say without any reservations that it is a 25-hour, 8-day-a-week job. Your mind never shuts off. How many vacations you take, pastors, as a pastor, no matter how many vacations we take, our mind never shuts off. I don't care how early we go to sleep, our mind never shuts off. This is why, my dear friend, that every morning when I pray, I call my pastor's name. I'm not trying to do this for brownie points. I call my pastor's name and I call their children's name up to the Lord, because I know, as a fact, I know for sure what my pastors go through. I understand, and I'm encouraging you today, don't ever let a day pass by without you praying for your pastors. You see, the mind never shuts off, and this, boy, it don't sound good, but when it boils down to it, the buck stops here. That's the pastor. Then you have the professionals. They're the people that help you heal. They perform surgery. They prescribe medicine. They keep a check on you to make sure you're progressively healing. Patients keep returning to the same hospital because of the care they get from the professionals. On the spiritual side, this would be the leaders of the church, the fivefold ministry that has just been implemented recently, the department heads, the ministers, the associates, and those that is able to grace this pulpit. Pastor's dad, Brother Jimmy, fits into this category. He was my associate for 25 years, and he won more people to the Lord than I did. People just absolutely loved Brother Jimmy. And a lot of members came to my church because of our pastor's daddy. Matter of fact, I was gone for about 3 weeks, and it was a Wednesday night when I come back in, and I got out of my car in the parking lot, and I saw a brand new woman coming down the little walkway, and so I went to her and I introduced myself to her, and I've never seen her before. And hello, I'm Pastor Wells. She said, "Oh, you're Pastor Wells." I said, "Yes, I'm the man, I'm Pastor Wells." And she says, "I'm so glad to meet you." She said, "I just absolutely love this church." And my first dumb thought was, how in the world can you love this church if you ain't never met me yet? How do you love the church if you've not heard me preach? You see, the professionals, the leaders of the hospital is the one that heals and cures you and shashas you and takes care of you and bring you to health. If you're a department head, if you're a minister at the Father's house today, let me tell you, you are important to this barn. The third thing is the workers and helps. They may be considered in the secular hospital as admit clerks, office workers, wheelchair pushers, orderlies, housekeepers. They play such a vital role in the hospital, but yet they never get recognition. I call these the unsung heroes. In the spiritual hospital, it would be the Marthas, the gifts of helps, the ushers, the hospitality, the clerical, the altar workers, and on and on and on. Listen, neither the administrator, professional, nor the helpers can say that they're the sole cause of the growth of the hospital. It takes every one of us working together. They don't compete with one another. They complete one another. And then the last but not least, that doesn't mean I'm closing, I'm just saying the last but not least in the hospital, are patients. Those that are sick, those that need surgery, those that are bleeding, those that has emotional problems. In the spiritual hospital, the patients are those that are unsaved, the backslid, the rejected, the cast down, the distress. The most important person that will ever walk through the hospital door, whether it's a secular hospital or a church hospital, is the visitor or the patient. If the secular hospital, if there are no patients, it will eventually close its doors. It doesn't make any difference how good an administrator you are. You see? Doesn't make any difference how good of a professional worker you are. It cannot operate without the patient. In a spiritual hospital, the only way a church can grow is because of the visitor. Oh, I know, you can get pregnant and have a child and grow it that way, but man, that's a lot of years trying to grow up that child to an adult to support the church. I'm going to say something, and I want you to think what I'm saying before you judge me. And if you do judge me, it doesn't bother me. I'm too old to be messed up anyway. If Jesus would come down in a bodily form and pastored our church, it would not grow unless the visitor walked through the door. Let's talk about the visitor just for a few moments about coming to church. Remember, if we want our church to grow, we need that visitor to walk through the door and become a member. I want to go on record to say that the visitor is the most important person in our service. Well, I hope you're getting something. According to Sister Google, my personal friend, visitors make up their minds within the first 10 minutes on whether they want to come back or not. In other words, they make up their minds way before even hearing the preacher. Sorry, Pastor. We must change if we want this place to be a lively, growing, messy place. We must change our attitude about the visitor. I had some very interesting statistics. Why people stop shopping where they shop. Number one just blows my mind. 1% is when they die. They just don't shop there no more for some reason. 3% said getting too old. 5% said other friendships. Their friends either opened a business or started working at another store. 9% said it's because of competitive reasons. 14% said we're not satisfied with the product. But 68% said we don't shop there anymore because of the bad attitude of store employees. So I believe it's safe to say that the leaders and helps in the church can either make the church or they can break the church. I remember being invited, Sister Wells and I was invited, I think it was in Harvey, Louisiana one time, to preach a dedication service, anniversary service. And we walked in the church. It was a usher hostess team, husband and wife. They opened the door and, supposed to smile and all that stuff. And when we walked in the church, so help me. You remember that? The man standing there, the woman standing there, the doors are right here, and they didn't know us. And I opened the door myself and walked in, and they are arguing with each other. The church is messy. And I told Sister Wells after church, if I would have been a visitor, I don't care how good that pastor preached. I don't care how nice the facilities looked. If I can't be treated right the first time that I step on the premises, that's not a place I want to worship at. I'm closing. It's almost 12 o'clock. Bad service produces bad advertisement. Bad advertisement produces no customers. No customers produces no growth. And no growth produces no business. When it comes to people, we need patience because people are messy, long-suffering. We need a good sense of humor, tons of grace and forgiveness, ability to like the unlikable, and the Holy Spirit guidance and the agape love of Jesus. Visitors can be turned off and never attend the church again when members unfriendly to the visitor. Child care is inadequate. This is why we need nursery workers. No children's church program. This is why we need children's church people. Bathrooms are deplorable. Sister Kim, that ladies' bathroom, I've been not in a bunch of ladies' bathrooms, but a bunch of bathrooms. That ladies' bathroom is absolutely good housekeeping. I'm telling you, it's now, men, don't you go in there, but ladies, isn't it beautiful? And don't try to identify yourself as a woman to go in there and look. It's just a thought. And believe it or not, when some brand new person, listen, they're scared to death anyway, okay? And when some brand new person walks in that door and the first thing they need to do is go in the bathroom and look at the deplorable bathroom, it just absolutely, without meeting anybody, it just absolutely turns people off. This is why it's so important to have a messy church with excellence. Too much talk about money. Unorganized, putting down other churches and religions. And I'm trying to close. I really am. It's 12 o'clock, and I know it, but have you ever heard of Swears? Swears is a little bitty run-down place that's been there for years. We've got some of the Swears siblings here and kinfolks and everything else. And when I was pastoring at Harvest Time on a Wednesday night, I had a visitor walk in. I did like I did all of my service. I got up and as I prayed, I asked the Lord to bless the Catholic Church and the Baptist Church and bless this Presbyterian and bless Father so-and-so over there. And that's the way I prayed. And that night I prayed that. And there was a woman there, Sister Swear, that came. And I didn't know anything about it. And all of a sudden, she came back with some of her children. And the next week, some of the children, I don't know, they had 100 children. How many? Lisa, how many children, y'all? How many? A bunch of them? You can't count that many. But, and the whole entire family, Sister Swear was the queen, the highness. She was the, even Brother Swear listened what she said. But and she told her children, she said, that's the church we got to go to. And so I won about 6 or 7 families overnight, all tithe-paying family that was in the charismatic Catholic movement. They were great people. One of them became a board member, and they were just great people, and some of them are still with us today. And about 6 months after they came, Sister Swear called me, and she said, Pastor, she said, do you know why we're at harvest time? And, of course, I knew why. It was my preaching. But, I said, no, ma'am, I really don't. She says, the first night I ever visited, she said, the first thing you did was you prayed for my Catholic priest. She says, I went back home and I told my kids, this is the man that we need to be under. Isn't it absolutely amazing how some pastors can get behind the pulpit and talk about different churches and different preachers and just so they can look good? Let's throw out our nets and see what we can catch. To sum up my teaching and tie everything together, if we're going to grow our church, expect our born to be messy. It's going to be messy with people that are not perfect, people that makes mistakes, people that are set in their own ways, people that are negative, people that are discouraged, people that don't think like you think, and people that are absolutely just different. Solomon says, if you want a clean barn, get rid of the oxen. But remember, if you get rid of the oxen, you're not going to have a harvest. Would you stand? Father, I don't know, Lord. I'm just trying to preach what you give me. Solomon knew what he was talking about. A messy barn produces fruit. It produces a harvest. Help us, God, just to be a messy church. I'm not talking about physical messy. Help us to have all kinds of people that comes here. And that we would just take them in and we would just love them. No matter their ethnic background, no matter their nationality, no matter their color. Would you let the Father's house be known as a church that love built? That we would just cast out our net We just cast out our net and not pick the fish we want, but take every fish that you sent us and care for them and love them. Because I believe, God, that every pew is going to be packed. I believe, God, that 2 services, and then they're going to be packed again. But they're going to be packed with people that are messy, just like we are. People with problems, troubled people, people that had no hope, people that felt like nobody cared for them. Help us, God, to have a messy church. May I sit by the alcoholic that still has alcohol on his breath. May I sit by the drug addict that hadn't taken a bath in weeks. May I put my arms around them and love them and care for them. Because, Lord, when it boils down to it, if we don't have a burden for souls, then we are not your church. In Jesus' name, Pastor.